Hey, Garrett, can you be a little quiet? I'm going to be on Facebook, on YouTube Live, okay? Right now. Thanks. Hello, hello, hello.
Welcome to Super Tuesday.
Super.
I'm Caroline, and we have Jeff and Dave with us today. And we're going to be reading chapter 4 from Blessings, Gifts, and Deeds, right? And Jeff,
I don't have my copy.
Dave's gonna listen and snicker if he wants. But Jeff, you're going to be the voice of Michael again, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Michael.
So here we are with chapter 4, and then we're going to interview Dave at the end. So that's the plan here. Chapter 4: Be at peace and teach only love. Kathleen called today to tell me what had happened, and all I can say is maybe there is something to this. When she arrived in Mexico, she was spent. She was too tired to sleep, and no matter what she tried, nothing helped. Kathleen started thinking about what I had told her and decided to take a chance. Feeling she had nothing to lose, she took the bottle of wine and had brought along for just this occasion. Picking up a bowl and a towel, she headed for the door. It was warm outside and was already well past noon when she sat on the grass away from everyone else. Surely God would overlook and forgive the fact that the wine had not been set out in the sun's path since before noon. Kathleen had been still on the flight down and from the airport to the hospital, wondering if God had a reason for her illness. I have got to get some sleep, she thought, as she took out the piece of paper where she had written what I had told her. Setting the bowl on a corner of the paper so it wouldn't blow away, she poured the wine into it. Coming from her room barefooted, there was no need to take off her shoes, so she closed her eyes and relaxed. She thought, Joe would not tell me this if it was not true, and began to wash with the wine. When she had completed washing, she said the words I had given her to say. Then she closed her eyes and listened for counsel. Her body started feeling a numb, tingling sensation like when an arm or a leg has gone to sleep and it starts to wake up. Kathleen described the feeling like a huge magnet pulling something out of her that should not have been there in the first place. Okay. Dogs are liking it too. Then the feeling was gone, and she heard a voice tell her what to do during the next year. Kathleen opened her eyes, picked everything up, and went back to her room. After putting everything away, she lay down and fell asleep. She had no idea how long she slept, but when she awoke, she felt great, and even the doctors were bewildered by how quickly she had recovered. This was just fine with her because usually it took 3 weeks of treatment before she felt half this healthy. It was late in the evening when the angel came again to my lily pond where I was contemplating this message.
It is not fitting that my Lord's God's children should suffer, Michael said. So great has become their longing to know God and the will of God, that they will listen to whomever holds up the book and claims to know that the secret hidden within, the secret which promises everlasting life and paradise with God. Out of fear, they will believe and obey unto the point of death, that with the authority of a gnat, their leader has threatened the everlasting fires of hell. The Lord God requires not that you die for him, but that you live to love and give comfort to each other. For death will come to all, so speed it not. I am has instructed me to give you these words. It is written that the sins of the fathers are visited upon the children. But I say from this day forward, the debt is paid. Now I say the rewards of the fathers will be visited on the children for 100 times, 100 generations. It is written that in my house there are many mansions. I say truly, one is yours, that you build brick by brick, with the blessings you give and the deeds you do. A place is set aside for you in paradise to build your mansion and live with me forever. The time is close when I will give to you a book that teaches you to make the bricks. My son Jesus has laid the foundation from the time he walked with you. In your book, it tells of Revelation, a vision of things to come, written with the knowledge of that time. It is so corrupted with mysticism and superstition over the centuries that no man or woman can know its meaning. When I am speaks, it is cloudless, for what I say is what is, no more or no less. There will be a great calling of my children when a large number will return home in the blink of an eye. So will many follow in the time to come, yet not to a last judgment. They come to their reward and will dwell with me in their mansions forever. It is said that I am a jealous God, and you will put no gods before me. This could not be, for I am all that there is, and no one is before me. Yet you build great houses with windows of colored glass and fill them with statues carved from stone. You adorn them in jewels, gold and silver, paintings and tapestries to tell stories of what was sacrificed for you. This you call a house of God, holy ground, and I say I dwell within. I am dwells not in these alone. Look well into the eyes of one another, from the poorest of the poor to the richest of the rich, both in spirit and possessions, you will find me there. Look at the fields of grass or flowers, and at the deserts, woodlands, jungles, and at the animals. I dwell there also. Look to the sunrise or the sunset. Look to the stars at night. Open your eyes and heart, for you will see me in all these things. When you have done this, you will know I have no need for such things. It would be fitting to sell them to feed and clothe the needy and turn these great houses into dwellings for those living in the streets. You cry out, "O Lord, we need these temples to teach your words and pray in." Yet I say to you, teach in the fields in the light as Jesus did, and all the prophets before and after him did. You need not the great halls for your prayers. Pray as Jesus has taught you. But Lord, you ask, where might we gather to pray for the souls of others? I tell you this, gather, not pray for those who are sick in spirit. Go to them and make their body, mind, and emotions well, and the spirit within will be free to do my work. You speak of sacrifice and teach that the spilling of blood made a covenant with me, and since Adam and Eve, along with Abraham. You tell of Cain's offering to me being unpleasing, for it was not blood, so I rejected it. You teach that Jesus' blood was shed so I would open the gates of heaven. I say this only once, all things whose blood runs red, who breathe air, have a soul. I gave life to them for my purpose, and it must not be shed. When you speak of Jesus saves, you belittle what he has done, for you speak as if he did not fulfill what he was sent to do. You listen, yet not a word have you heard. Jesus told you when he said, "No one comes to the Father but by the Son." This he made it known that you are saved. Think not that in that salvation it gives you license to do that which pleasures only you, casting aside all else. When you do not honor and bless that which is around you, no bricks do you make, and your mansion will be fitting in size for you.
With this, Michael became silent and looked at me as if to see what I had to say. My head was still spinning from all this, but I said, it has always seemed to me that the Bible, Torah, and Quran spoke of a vengeful God, one whose punishment is a swift and terrible thing to behold when he is displeased. Still, he is supposed to be a God of love? That to me is a contradiction in terms. Now I see, if the truth be told, he is all loving, period.
Yes, Joe, God is. And with so great a love for you all that if you could know the feeling of only the smallest portion of God's love, you would weep tears of joy that would fill rivers.
Michael stated. I hear what's being said about Jesus, but as regarding him making it known that we are saved, why has it been so difficult for us to understand this concept, I asked.
Jesus was sitting with his disciples teaching when Simon said to him, Master, you tell these truths, yet how is it they fall on so many deaf ears? The people gather to listen and know not of what you speak. Jesus told him, my teachings are not for this age, but for the next. Jesus knew that the spiritual state of most people was such that it would take 2,000 years before mortals could rise to a level where they could understand what he is teaching. Take a look around your world. Do you not see many beginnings to really know the truths Jesus taught?
Yes, I do. I see more and more people looking for the truth. I see people returning to the old established religions and calling the truth New Age thinking. Some say New Age thinking is the work of the devil because it talks about the signs of the zodiac.
You know what I have said about the devil, so speak of it to me no more. One of your teachers has given you the knowledge of what an age is. I say truly to you, the age that is coming is new, for it has never been nor will be again. So you see, it is a new age. The zodiac is just a heavenly clock that measures the movement of the earth, planets, suns, and stars. But since the early religions thought the earth was the center of the universe and said everything that moved around the earth was being pushed by angels, anything else was blasphemy.
My teacher, Alexander Everett, explained it to me this way. An age lasts 2,000 years, and it will take about 100 years as a transition from one age to the next. Each age has specific characteristics. The church believes this is nonsense. Could be, but let's take a look. The age we are in now is Pisces, which started around the birth of Jesus. Now Pisces is a water sign of the zodiac. Its symbol is that of the two fishes. The early Christians used a fish as their sign and not the cross. A common occupation of the age was a fisherman because fish is the food of the age, which might be why Jesus said, come with me and I will make you fishers of men. When someone was baptized, water was used. Jesus walked on water to signify he had dominion over the age. He changed water into wine to signify the beginning of his teachings from his time to the next age. When Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount, he fed the people fish and bread, which symbolized the blending of the ages. If you go back another 2,000 years, you're at the age of Aries, the ram, which was a fire sign. God appeared to Moses, for example, on top of a fiery mountain in a bush that was on fire. Moses led his people through the wilderness at night following a pillar of fire. A common occupation of that age was herding sheep. The food of the age was ram or sheep. The baptism of the Jewish people was done with fire. Go back another 2,000 years and you are in the age of Taurus, the bull, and it is an earth sign. This age was the time of building. This is when people started to build great cities, pyramids, and monuments. The occupation of the age was that of the builder. And if you look at the Mason Square, you might notice it came out of Egypt. The food of the age was beef. Have you ever heard of the expression, prepare the fatted calf? Now then, let's talk about the coming age, the age of Aquarius. This is an air sign, and its symbol is that of a man with a jar of water who is pouring the water out onto the earth. What this symbolizes is the pouring of knowledge on the earth. He is also holding stocks of grain. The occupation of the age will be farming and other things related to growing. The food of the age is grains and other things that are grown. As for the pouring of knowledge, take for instance the invention of the light bulb, radio, and television, and the period of time that it took to invent and develop these. Roughly, in the last 100 years, in the last part of this century alone, as we make the transition into the new age, we move from light bulbs to lasers, from digital watches and calculators to supercomputers, from the telegraph to telephone to the information superhighway. The inference I'm making is not that we have acquired in our knowledge and technology, but the astounding rate in which we are acquiring it. You may say, so what does all this have to do with what Jesus taught? Well, according to the Bible, Jesus told Peter and John, go and prepare the Passover meal for us. They asked him where he wanted the meal to be. Jesus told them to go into the city and that a man carrying a jug of water would meet them. Sound familiar? He will show you a large room upstairs, already furnished. Make preparations for us there, Jesus said. I could understand at least some similarities in what Jesus said and did and the symbols of the new age. Doesn't it say in Genesis somewhere that God put the stars in the sky as a sign and to mark the change of seasons? Then I asked Michael about not eating anything that bleeds red. Does this mean that animals have souls too? After asking this, I started thinking that would mean dogs, cats, pigs, cows, whales, lions, and tigers and bears. Oh my. Goodbye, bacon, steak, eggs, and fried chicken.
Yes, they do, Michael said. If their blood is red, they have souls, not as advanced as yours, but souls nonetheless. You and your kind will use them for food for only a little while, and then will no more. In the time to come, food is to be in such abundance, animals will not be needed as food. All this will be told to you when the time comes for the book of bricks.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that, I said. You see, I figured out for myself, it has to do with making bricks for our mansions. So I guess it's all about these laws we will be given that tell us if we obey, then we get bricks. And if we don't, we won't, right?
Are you not listening to the message God is giving? This is not a book of laws that you must obey, so you will be given bricks. If you need a comparison, it is as a builder's manual or instruction book. This book tells you how to make bricks, not what you must do to get them. Too many laws have been made for you to keep or break that you have earned little. This book will give you what you need to know so that many will be the bricks be for your mansion in paradise.
Okay, I understand the distinction. Now, when do I get the book?
When you are ready in God's eyes to receive it. Take heart, Joe, for the time is close at hand.
Well, I guess if it has taken 2,000 years to get this far, sometime in my life is soon enough. As far as I can see in our talk today, we as God's children have no idea of God's love for us. Yet we want to be with God so much that we will listen to anyone who tells us he knows how to get us there. From fear of going to hell, which doesn't exist anyways. If someone comes along and tells us he is Jesus, we kill ourselves because he says Armageddon is just around the corner. We do what we are told because we don't understand what is written originally in the Bible, the Torah, and the Quran. We practice idolatry in our churches through our ignorance. We are borderline cannibals because we eat other creatures that have souls. And all the time we tell ourselves that a vengeful and jealous God had his son killed to open the gates of heaven. Who would send Jesus back a second time to toss most of us to hell anyways? Because he didn't get the job done right the first time. He would have come back to save us. Does that just about sum it up?
What you speak has great truth in the way it has been. Yet I say to all of you, Jesus will not return, for he is with you even now. I tell you truly also, he is not alone. The Holy Spirit is with him as a sister in what will be done.
So tell me how we will know Jesus or his sister when we see them, and what are they supposed to do, and what are they going to teach us?
You will know them in this way. He and she will be together, and they will be apart. They will be young and they will be old, dressed in rags or dressed in fine clothing. They are well and they are lame. They are fair and they are dark. The way you will know most of all is that they are in need. They have not come to teach, but to learn from you. Compassion, kindness, and giving is what you will teach them. You will know not who they are, yet they will know you. What they will do is open a time for you to make many bricks by the deeds and blessings you shower on them. Be generous in this, and an abundant supply of bricks will be yours. Act meagerly, and you will make no bricks. My time is over for now. Be at peace and teach only love.
With that, he was gone, fading away like before, leaving me thinking about what he said. I thought about my Roman Catholic upbringing. In second or third grade, during catechism class, we were doing the who, what, and where is God thing. I did just fine with God is love and with God created heaven and earth and all living things. These things, the Son, Sister Mary Elizabeth explained in no uncertain terms. It was fact, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. When I got into trouble was the where thing. Now this nun, if I even have her name right, was the spitting image of Sister Teresa. I can see her kind and loving eyes looking through that set of what seemed to be strong yet inexpensive and very unfashionable eyeglasses. When she had the sweet and wise face of anyone's best loved grandmother, hazel eyes with graying eyebrows, a cute little pug nose, and thin lips set above a chin so smooth and round, it would have fit perfectly on the nape of your neck if she hugged you. Her face was all I could see because a white band covered her forehead. A white collar ran around her neck. The rest of her was covered in black. She also had on what looked to me at the time to be a white cardboard bib. I guess it was so she wouldn't spill anything on her black robe when she was eating. At least this made sense to me at the time. Where is God? She asked. And all the children in class replied, God is everywhere. That's right, she said. God is in the trees, in the animals, in the ocean, in the rocks, and in heaven and on earth. So you see, God is everywhere except in you, because you were born with original sin. Until you're baptized in the church, you will never go to heaven. Even in the second or third grade, with my limited wisdom and intelligence, it occurred to me, wait a minute, this stinks. She just said that God is everywhere. And now she says that God is not within us because we are sinners. I couldn't understand this. So thirsting for knowledge was I, that my hand shot up in the air immediately. Her kind eyes looked at me and she said, yes, Joe, do you have a question? Yes, sister, I said. I don't understand how God can be everywhere and not be in me, because either God is everywhere or he's almost everywhere, but he can't be everywhere and not be everywhere at the same time. Could you explain this to me? Because I really don't understand. Standing in the blackboard behind her desk, something in Sister Mary Elizabeth's eyes had changed as she said, so you don't understand. She picked up a book from her desk and walked to the end of the aisle farthest away from me and proceeded to walk the length of it. I figured she was going to come down my aisle from the back. We had always been told to look forward in class because there was nothing in the back we needed to see. I heard soft steps coming down the aisle from behind me. Sitting there, I knew that in a few moments, that which I did not understand would be made clear to me. Her footsteps stopped. I heard a thud as the crashing blow of the book reached the back of my head, sending me sprawling into the aisle. I tried to pick myself up off the floor as my senses began to come back to me. I looked up and saw what used to be a sweet grandmother type. She had transformed into a vicious attack dog. Now do you understand? Now do you understand? She growled. Humbled by my stupidity for asking a question that would get this kind of response, in a low voice, I replied, "Yes, sister, I understand." "That's good," she said, "because the church wants everyone to go to heaven. And it really doesn't make any difference whether you understand or not. You just have to believe what the church tells you." As she walked back to her desk, the other children looked at me as though I were an idiot, and my embarrassment was almost overwhelming. I did understand. I was absolutely sure I understood. I understood that I would never not understand again. The reason for telling you this story is to give you the background of my religious upbringing. I also want you to understand a conflict that is going on in me. I would have liked to live a saintly life in accordance with the scriptures, but I haven't. All the things I learned as a child about God stayed in the back of my head and still haunts me today. I think I know what must have been going on in the minds of the people Jesus had been teaching. If you are brought up to believe a certain way and all your life you do the best you can to live up to these teachings, when someone tells you it is all different, then you have a choice of at least two belief systems. That is a luxury I no longer have. Can you close the door, please? I don't know what someone else would do. I only know what I must do. I do trust that God knows where all this is going. That was my dog. Sorry about that. And it ends with bless your heart. So that was chapter 4.
Good.
All right. So we're going to continue on with our experiences about being gathered and with the last baptism. And so we've got Dave here, and he was in Shelby Cherie's gathering. Is that correct? The 5th gathering, and that was with Diana and Greg Joseph and who else?
Diana Nelson, Chuck Richards, Stephanie Williams, Pam, I can't think of her last name right now, Sandy, can't think of her last name. Mainly the 3 of us that are still going is, 4 of us is Shelby, Greg Joseph comes to the events, and Diana has been coming since she found out they were happening. So, yep.
Nice.
We were in the 5th gathering. It was October 18th in 1998. So it was just a year after the first gathering, and there had already been 4 before us. And we actually did the gathering at Kathleen's house, just like they did in the first gathering. First gathering was at Kathleen's other house, and I think it was Contra Costa. This was in Benicia, nestled up on a hill. It was beautiful and quite enchanting. And I was really eager to get gathered. So eager, I called Shelby Cherie every day for about a year until she put it together. I mean, I called her every day, and we talked and talked and talked. So we got this. She put.
Did you do the baptism before you got gathered?
Oh yeah, I did the baptism right after I read the book. The first thing I did after I read the book, my brother, how I got the book was.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear, how you got the book. Okay.
My brother, my twin brother Brian, worked for a audio company in the music industry, and he was a dynamic salesman, but he had a bit of a attitude problem. So they offered him 2 things: either go to LifeSpring or here's a severance package. So he chose LifeSpring, of course, and it was a dynamic salesperson. That's why they offered that to him. His sales built the company, so they wanted him there. So they sent him to this place called LifeSpring, and Brian went through the basic and whatnot, and then the advanced.
Was that Alexander Everett's deal? Alexander Everett?
In the beginning of it, yes. Alexander Everett gave it to, gosh, I can't think of his. I just saw something about him online. Anyhow, gave it to one of his students, and they carried it on. Just
That's
like
was turned into kind of landmark.
Werner Earhart was a student of Alexander Everett, and that's where we got Est. And then there's another group called Landmark Forum.
Landmark, yeah.
And quite popular. LifeSpring is what they had, and it it worked out. Brian went and he did the basic, and then he took his time. He waited 2 or 3 weeks to go to the advanced, which he did end up going to do by choice. And the lead for the advanced was Joe Crane. Anyhow, Joe didn't introduce him to the angel stuff at that time. This was 1994. Joe hadn't even had a visit yet. So in 1994, when Brian went, they gave him a book to write up his stuff up in, and he had everything, and everybody exchanged phone numbers and stuff. And anyhow, Brian kept having this number show up oddly. I'll let him tell the story someday. Anyhow, it turns out that he got a hold of Joe, ended up going and meeting with Joe and getting one of the first manuscripts in print. It wasn't even in a book yet. And then he did some metaphysical blessing stuff at his house, and Steve was there, and Shelby was there, and a few other people. It wasn't Brian's cup of tea, but anyhow, Joe gave him this book. He had an experience on the way home. About 2 weeks later, he receives a book from Joe, the actual white book that you have there, that you guys are reading out of. And it took him a couple of weeks to read it, but after he read it, he jumped in his car and drove 3.5 hours up to my house in the mountains. I live in Pioneer, California at the time. And it was a Wednesday, I remember it well. I was having a Hail Bop party, and I'd throw odd parties for the guys that worked for me. I had a lawn aeration service, and I had several employees, and they'd come over for barbecue. So tonight's theme was Hail Bop party, because the Hail Bop was right over my garage. You could see it right there where we hang out and play guitar and do stuff. Anyhow, Brian comes tearing up my driveway, and I'm like, it's not the weekend. What are you doing here? And he had his son with him, Zachary. And he says, dude, you got to read this book. This guy, Joe, he's a regular guy. He's got tattoos. He drinks Pepsi. He's just a regular guy, but he talks to angels. And the way the angels talk sounds like you. And I said, okay, great. Put it on the counter. Go grab yourself a drink. And, we got stuff on the barbecue. We got a bunch of people here right now. Grab a guitar. Let's play. And he's like, no, dude, you have to listen to this. You have to hear this. And he's like literally following me around the yard. And I'm like doing my best W.C. Fields of get away from me, kid, you're bothering me, And he wouldn't let up. And he's thumbing around in this little white book. And I'm like, dude, just get over it, because my brother, he's 16 minutes older than me. And he has a tendency of being a little pushy with me, right? So I'm thinking this is just pushy Brian. And he also is of the Church of Ephesus, which is orange, and they like to promote things, and they don't take no very well when they're ready to get something to you. And he wasn't having any of the get away from me, kid, you bother me thing. Pulls it, he finally gets to this page, and he says, hell was a dump site outside of Jerusalem, and not a place for damned souls. And I'm like, where'd you get that? Because I had already discovered in an ancient Bible, an old Bible that I had, Diana, which was a little town in Jerusalem where trash was burned, and subsequently was your river or lake of fire that everybody wanted to get tossed into. Anyhow, so I grabbed the book out of his hand. I went down and I excused myself from the party. And I went and sat in my chair, and I started reading. And it got so intense that I stopped for a minute, and I went and I finished up with my friends at the party and stuff. And everybody left, and it took me about an hour, and I went and I sat down in my chair, and I read that thing cover to cover. And I was just sitting there stunned in my living room going, this is it. This is it. I have been studying every religion I can get my hands on since I was a little kid, because I got kicked out of church at 7 for asking questions after reading their book. So I got to meet all kinds of spiritual teachers and things of that nature. I just self-inflicted. I was looking for them. They were finding me too. And nothing really fit. And I found unity. That kind of was like, yeah, this is close, but something's missing. After reading that book 3 times in one night, I'm like sitting there, and I stayed up all night just sitting there staring at the living room. Didn't even turn on the TV. Didn't do nothing. It was fall. Or it was coming up on fall. It was late summer. Just like July. I'm sorry, it wasn't fall. It was like July. It was August was coming. And anyhow, I went to bed finally, got up. I started crying about, reading this book and crying. Every time I picked up the Book of Bricks, I took the advice. And when I got stuck, I looked at it. And I went to the store a couple days later and bought a bottle of wine and did a baptism in my backyard. My wife thought I was nuts. What are you washing your hands and feet for out in the yard? And I tried to explain to her what was going on. She would have nothing of it because she said that I was on a God kick because I'd go to every church on the mountain. I'd go to different city. I would check every, church, synagogue, mosque, anything to do with a religion. I was up there and just checking it out, seeing what's going on. She got tired of that. Anyhow, so I did my baptism, and about 2 weeks later, I'm down. Brian and I would trade. I would go down and house sit at his house and work his neighborhood with my service and do pretty well there. And I'd stay for about a week, and he'd come up, and they're up at the lake camping, and what they called camping. They rented a cabin. They went camping at the cabin at the lake. Nice place. And the phone rang, and I answered the phone. This is Saveda residence, and this gruff voice comes over the phone, says, "Is Brian there?" And I said, "No, he's away at the moment. Can I take a message?" He says, "Well, you must be David." I'm like, "Who's this?" And he says, "I'm Joe Crane." I'm like, "No kidding. I just read your book. I did my baptism. When are we doing this gathering thing?" I mean, I don't even know the guy, and I'm already asking him when I'm going to get gathered because I've already read the book. I got it, but it's right there on the counter. I'm reading it over again. I mean, I read this thing so many bloody times. I just couldn't get enough of this beautiful information that I had been seeking. I'm talking to all these really nice people. Catholic priests are really cool, by the way. When you go look at, they're very nice people, and they know their stuff. They know their theology. But it was, I was met with so much resistance because I didn't believe in hell, and I didn't understand the Jesus thing because I had discovered all kinds of cool stuff about literature and how letters were created and stuff like that, created after the guy. I was like, anyhow, talking to Joyce says, I'm going to have a class. I called Brian to invite him to a class I'm having this Saturday in Fremont, and you should come. And I says, "Yeah, I'm there." And he says, "Well, it's 35 in advance or 40 at the door." And I'm like, $40 to meet Joe Crane, no problem. He says, "Well, it's, less if you pay in advance." I said, "Well, I'm about 30, 40 minutes away. So it's just, I'll pay the full, I got a couple 20s here. I'll meet you. $40 to meet Joe Crane. I'm in. So Saturday comes. I really couldn't sleep until Saturday. I really thought I was a kid going to freaking Disneyland. It was an amazing ride for me. I was excited. Life had all kinds of opportunities coming up, and I'm like, nothing's happening yet. The first gathering hadn't even happened. He hadn't found all of the 7. He was looking for one more. They already had a yellow. I didn't even know my gift at that time yet. Anyhow, I get up to this class. I walk through the door with like 6 or 7 other people and maybe a dozen people. And Joe says, "David, I'm glad you made it." And he's looking at the wall, and there's no reflection, and everybody's walking through the door with me, and they're like, "How did he see us come in?" I wonder if he saw us out the door, out the window, and when I came in, he kind of timed it to when the next group of people come in, he's going to freak me out or something. I never asked. Anyhow, he turned around and gave me a hug. And it was like I just met my best friend. Mind you, my twin brother, Brian, didn't like this guy at all. He's like, "Yeah, it's this guy, Joe. He sees angels, but, maybe you'll like him. I don't know." But anyhow, me and him I personally had an affinity for him immediately. His wife, Donna, was there. Steve was there. Shelby was there. She was going by Sherry at the time. But Shelby was there. There was a dozen people in this class, and it was called Living Your Soul's Purpose. We're going to be learning this at the event this year. So the very first thing I did when I met Joe was figured out what my life's purpose was. So we went through this thing, and long story short, how are we doing on time? We're doing great. Okay. We're going through this thing. We break off in threes, and they're telling us each other our life's purpose. And I started crying because what they were telling me was not only amazing, but it felt right. But I had no idea how it was going to be. I thought I was going to be a sales guy. I own a business. I like running crews. I thought, maybe I'm a red because I'm in charge, or maybe I'm a blue because I like to talk a lot. I mean, I talk a lot. When I'm out on the sales floor, blah, 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 won't stop, especially if I know something about it. Anyhow, I'm talking to Joe a little while later and he says, try and figure out what your gift is. And they were telling me how I was going to be doing all this stuff with a bunch of people all over the place and traveling and they pretty much said, the stuff this guy Joe's teaching right now is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be participating in it in some way, shape, or form, or whatever. Little did I know that's what I'm going to do. I really thought I was going to be a sales guy. Anyhow, so we get done with that class. I'm talking to Joe on and off. I actually called him every day for about 6 months until he gave me Shelby's number. And kind of, get away from me, kid, you're bothering me. Actually, we got along on the phone a lot. He was a very good mentor. He became more of a mentor than anything. Then they went through their gathering and, that happened. And a little while later, I got to get gathered in October of 1998. And it's a 3-day thing. Okay. Mental, emotional, physical, and the whole thing spiritual. Okay. So that's how they explained it to me. All the people that were there, we had, people from Chicago, from Syracuse, New York, from Arizona, from the Bay Area, and from LA, and then myself from the Bay Area. And there was just the 7 masters in Shelby. That was what the gathering was. We got together, we figured out, who's going to go with who. There's a process to that. You'll have to figure that out when you get gathered. We pulled together a few bucks each. I think everybody pulled out $30 and put it on the table, put it in an envelope, and we picked a couple people to go to the store and go shopping. We figured out everybody's dietary needs and whatnot. Important to figure that out. Got all that together, made dinner together, got up, made breakfast together, did processes that was in the gathering script. She had the script in her hands and she was going through everything that we were to go through. Although it has changed since then, they've added a few things, more of the process to it that Michael has given, more of a cohesive. What you guys see now, if you've been gathered, you can get one of these, and it's more cohesive. I cried a lot. I cried a lot. Luckily, we had Greg Joseph there, a very accomplished healing facilitator. He teaches people stuff. He was into Young Living essential oils big time, and energy healing. I don't know what kind of, he did touch healing. He did his own development. And he worked on me a lot. So did Shelby, and so did Diane. Diane, she was like the mother of the group. Of course, she's of the Church of Laodicea, which is Violet, and they're the mother of the group.
Yeah.
Shelby kind of stayed away and just made sure that we were all part of the gig. We worked together as we did our thing. When it came time to do the gathering, that was a very interesting time. The energy significantly changed. The air in the house significantly changed. I could feel the presence of angels. I could feel the presence of all kinds of stuff just filling the room. And when it came my turn to go in, I went in, and she actually had to call my name because I was really basking in the thick of it, and I was having a hell of an experience. And I got out of that and I felt different. I felt new. I felt like the world was my oyster, and anything could be accomplished. And we have a possibility to create a world that works for everyone, and that was the whole idea that I was coming into this with is, everybody being able to do this and create a world that works for everyone. I thought it was going to be a lot easier than it was, because what made it not so easy is they don't give you a whole lot of instructions, because that was before tuning forks. That was before the angel oils. We didn't have the angel oils. We didn't have colored tuning forks. We had the baptism. We had a harmonic spectrum set of tuning forks that were steel from Germany, and we had frankincense and myrrh. That was it. And then a lot of the folks that were there were very into healthy lifestyle. I didn't eat meat per se. I ate fish. I was pescatarian at the time, so I preferred to eat fish or just vegetables, veggies, more of a vegan type, or raw. Loved raw food. Um, and anyhow, we created a bond through that weekend that I'm still in touch with everybody. Even though some of the folks don't come to the events, I'm still in touch with them. And it's been, wow. I mean, let's talk about a life-changing thing. I was a very difficult case. I had a lot of things that I had to deal with, and we found out that, you're the one that can heal yourself. So, once it clicked in me that I'm the one that's responsible for my healing, I didn't have to start looking everywhere that I went, asking for healings, getting readings, getting healings, getting all this contribution from others until I started contributing to myself. It didn't click. So once that started happening, it took about, I don't know, 2 or 3 years until it started really clicking. And then I started doing gatherings and just really taking off with the work and still healing. It doesn't, just because a couple things click doesn't mean you're all fixed, you still have things to work on. And I learned a lot. And as a result, one of the things that we figured out that, because a lot of the people that I had started doing this work with in the early stages, when they were already there or just coming in or whatever, the people we were starting to work with, they were getting oils and things like that to make. There's no more makers of the oils. Joe does it all, and Gabby's going to be doing it real quick in a hurry. But one of the things we noticed right away was my ability of remembering everything Michael said, because I was so hungry when I got this information that I think that when I read this stuff, I absorb it in such a way that the excitement just records it in me. And you could talk about a situation and I'll remember when it happened, what's going on with it and stuff like that. Ask me, when some life occurrence in my life happened, I'm probably not going to remember. What I had for breakfast 2 days ago, I have no idea. What Michael and Joe talked about the last 3 conversations, sure. You want it verbatim? You want just a quick 9 bars? What do you want? So I started archiving everything and keeping everything on record. Just the visits, I didn't change anything, just kept them in Word documents, and I started a Hotmail page, which is like a website, and it was called Angelic Gate, and it looked like a website, and I put all the info there. And Gary and Joe were writing a book called, oh God, I can't remember the name of the darn book.
On the Wings of Heaven?
No, it was before that. It didn't happen. The book didn't happen. Anyhow, it was before On the Wings of Heaven. And Gary's like, you put our whole book online. I'm like, yeah, I'm just putting things in order. So anyhow, I had processes and stuff like that. And then Hotmail website in the early 2000s. And now we have Angelic Gate with all the archives and processes and stuff. So if you need to know what, it's by year and stuff like that. And it's made for the masters. Yes, I just update the site. It's nothing really to do with me. It has to do with the work, and it promotes the masters. It's about bringing you guys together and doing what you guys are doing now. I'm so happy that you guys have this coming up. Now you guys are gonna start doing this weekly. I'm excited. I can't wait to see what comes out of it, because I know your conversation will help people understand this stuff really well. And from what I heard on that last video, all the videos have been very insightful. That last video you did, what you guys were talking about, how the epiphany happened, and you're like, no, this guy really talks to physical angels. He's not a channel. He's not a medium. He's not going to give you a reading. He's not interested in that, but he does have physical visitations where they can actually touch him, and he's touched them. So, and then after I got gathered, within about 6 months, there were more gatherings and more gatherings. And it seemed like every week we were getting visits and more work to do. But something started happening. Everybody got these tremendous headaches. I mean, it was like I had a headache for like 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, because those were when the gatherings were happening. People were starting to take off like wildfire. There were gatherings all over Chicago. There were gatherings all over Montana, all over Washington, and even down into Colorado and even in Texas. Texas, there were gatherings. And Joanne Macco was trying to keep tabs on all the gatherings, which is really almost virtually impossible to do. She kept up for about 790 gatherings, and then it's like, I can't do this. It's like juggling, 150 items with two hands. You can't do it. So she did a great job of that, though. But we had so many gatherings going on that we would get these headaches, and we called them there for a good year or more. We would call them gathering headaches. And so a couple years went by, and we went to this thing called Michael was talking to Joe about getting the masters together to do stuff, and Joe's kind of not sure what he was talking about. It wasn't really time for that yet. We hadn't we started getting these keys, these different things. We were getting the 7 keys. We were getting the principles of a master. The principles of a master we got all at once. The 7 keys, it was as the gatherings grew. Now, the same goes with this. More gatherings that we have, the more information we're going to be able to get, and the more things we can do as a group. And the more energy you're going to start creating, and you'll know when the gatherings are happening. It won't come in the form of a headache, I hope. We've moved past those things. Our growing has come
Yeah, I
tremendously.
think the headache thing is pretty much past.
Way past. I haven't had a gathering headache in a long time. Although I did have a headache at some of the events, but it's because the masters come together that have been gathered, and the buzz is so big. You get kind of a dehydration, so you want to watch your hydration. We figured out that it's hydration, and so we went to this. Shelby told me about this thing in Montana that Joe and Robbie and Gary were planning to do, and it was in November of 2000, and I was getting divorced, and I was like dead broke, and I was like working in a car lot, and all of a sudden, the next thing you know, I'm sitting there with airline tickets, money for a hotel, and I'm heading to Montana. Joe didn't even know. I didn't know I was going to go. It was so last minute. Joe didn't even know I was going to be there. And we drove up. I drove in. We landed with Gregory Joseph, who was making the Gabriel's oil at the time. Shelby met up with Mary Shipley at the airport. Joanne and all. Then we drove into this in a car. Gregory Wheeler. Gregory Wheeler. I get the Gregorys mixed up sometimes. Anyhow, we're driving his rental car, and I'm in the passenger seat, and we pull into Star Haven, where we're having this Tree of Life conference. And pull in, I noticed it was just a dirt parking lot with looked like a building, like a restaurant, because you could see tables inside and stuff. And Gregory Wheeler just starts screaming with his hands up like this, just like girl scream. Like, I can't do it, but he did the girl scream. And he's like, look, we're in a rental car. The speedometer said 444.
Oh,
So there was 444 miles on the rental car. He's flipping out. So it's already let the angel things start beginning. Anyhow, turns out there were 44 people at this event. Met a lot of Lifetime people. We did this toning thing there that we've only done one other time that I remember. Broke off into different groups by color, or all in the colors of the rainbow, and everybody's saying their note. And you could hear this overtone, and all this really cool stuff was happening. It was really mystical. Sorry, I have to move. I get bouncy when I talk. That was the first day of life. Go ahead.
What about your personal thing that happened with you okay, so can you share anything personal about what happened in your gathering when you were in the center? Anything that happened that was profound, that was
it was just like it was light, and I didn't hear words, I felt them.
Okay.
And it was talking about the same thing they said when I was getting my life's purpose thing.
Okay.
They were saying, the first thing they said when I got in the center was, you have been through a lot. You will probably go through more, but it is only to bring you to a place to where you can be with your brothers and sisters, and most importantly, the children. This work is really about the kids, by the way, because they get the earth after we're gone. So anyhow, yeah. But the
Well, that's
first Tree of Life conference was a very important aspect too. But yeah, ask questions. Anything you want to know about my first gathering, or the first gathering I attended. um, it was this is
I
the
think
last
it's,
20, this last
I
20
think,
years have been the most mystical times I could think of, and it's not stopped. It's always very mystical. It's always very uh, surprising. It's exciting. You know, it's like we got in 4 months we're coming together.
one
And
Derek party for you since you did your last baptism.
what's that?
So you've been feeling this building of these connections and things like that ever since you were little, basically. And so each time you would do this, it would just build and build and build. And so your connection got
It definitely,
stronger.
things in my childhood to my adulthood did lead me to this. I had experiences with religion. I had experiences with spirituality. I was taught Reiki when I was 13 years old, and teaching Reiki after that. And I kind of gave it up after I got into high school and stuff, because I got a little more interested in something else out there, like girls. That was more important than, I didn't know that if all I did was show the girls the Reiki stuff, I'd have gotten all the girls, more girls that way. But I wasn't thinking that. I was just being a party animal. And of course, the Grateful Dead came along, and well, the bus came by, and I got on, and that's how it all began. So
you haven't got off.
I don't go to the shows anymore, but I listen to Jerry on a regular basis. So
All right.
it's been a fun ride, and the people that you get to meet and the things you get to do. I mean, there's been a lot of people involved in this. In the beginning of this, it was getting a momentum that was just wow. But the problem is we didn't really know what we were doing. So there were a lot of things happening that people didn't understand, or they came up in their lives that they had to handle, or I don't know what. It doesn't matter. It's not my concern.
Well,
Um,
Dave, let's talk about what you're doing now. You're doing a weekly Facebook Live, and then you are the archive. You have all the angel visits archived in, what's that website again?
AngelicGate.com.
Right. So
been doing a weekly Facebook Live chat on our Facebook. We have a group that Utana Tassi put together some years back and gave to me, because she didn't. All I do is I click the button when somebody comes to join. That's basically all I do, and I post a lot of stuff, but I already did that anyway. That's why she handed it off to me, because careful, don't post too much in a group. They might give it to you.
okay.
AngelicGate.com has the archives of everything that Michael has given Joe as far as visits from way back in the 90s until now. It even has the book. It has contact information for a lot of the masters, past, present, that have been around. It's generally a angelic information super highway, or as somebody called me the other last event, Angelpedia. Hey, there's Angelpedia.
All right.
Maybe we can call it Angelpedia.
Jeff?
Maybe we could, but it doesn't explain the angels that much, but it explains what Michael does. And anyhow, it's been a great ride, and I got to meet you guys through this. I met I was in a chat room many years ago, talking to some lady that was about grids and stuff like that. And Caroline, we were in a Yahoo chat group. I think it was like Spiritual Haven or something like that. and we struck up a conversation, and I gave her the information. And didn't you buy On the Wings of Heaven first? You got On the Wings of Heaven. You read
I know Master's Return.
Master's Return. Okay, got the Master's Return, and you've been coming for many years now. So, it's been happening for a while. There's a lot of good things happening. There was a guy, Steve, that passed away in 2004. The early people, if you were involved in this, Steve was involved with you in some way, shape, or form, because he had a networking group. Holy buddy, I'll tell you what, he had everybody in his database. But anyhow, I like to connect people together, and I like to see that you guys, are doing, see when you guys are doing stuff, because I want to promote it. I want to tell other people about it, because over the years, I've met a lot of people, and been able to have a little bit more reach than I would in, let's say, my old lawn aeration business. I don't know that many people there, but in this, I can, reach out and get people to see each
All
other.
right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up, Jeff, right?
It's good. We're at 6
Yeah.
o'clock.
Yeah, we're at. I can't believe that people think that you could talk too much. I mean, I don't know where they get that impression.
As long as I stay on task, because I do wander.
That's right.
I know. I just wanted to say, I thought it was really unique how you came across the book where, see, I wasn't looking, but I knew how I felt. And you were searching and finding all that stuff out in the religion. You were actually, searching in the religion where I wasn't. But I knew, what I felt, about religion. And like you said, you'd tell them there's no hell. And they'd say, well,
no, they wouldn't say anything. They'd be pissed.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you see that's why I wanted to go back to the 4th chapter. You see what happens when you think outside the box. Joe asked a question, and she whapped him in the head, said that we're not going to go that way. So when you're a little kid, I mean, he's never going to ask a question again. And he's, so
Not
that's
me.
what they do.
Not me.
Yeah.
You
They
can
don't
beat me
want
up
you
over my
thinking
question. I'm
outside
gonna
the
keep going.
box.
Joe got whacked in the head. Dave got kicked out of church. I mean,
Yeah, that's what they said. They said, do what the church
Like,
says.
a lot of the masters have had a lot of run-ins with religion, because a lot of the people that are involved in this are seekers of truth and knowledge. And we'll find that all of our commonalities is when you found this, you were looking for something, and it more or less found you.
That's the key. I want to say it found me. I wasn't looking for it. And that's what I said. Because what I heard you say is you basically were getting the answers that you were searching for. And then you started on your path.
And then
that's
when
what I'm
I
saying, you did
found
the
this, I got
baptism, you did
major
the
validation.
gathering, and you were soaking it all in. And that's what I'm saying. I wasn't looking for it. It found me, but I knew how I felt. So it's really unique that way.
It had to catch me when I wasn't looking.
Yeah.
I've always been into the mystical. I've always had a pocket full of crystals. I like essential oils. I like, good organic raw food. Yeah, I hug trees, and some people go on vacation and come home with a trunk full of bags. I come home with a truck full of sand, shells, rocks, branches, leaves.
Yeah.
And I do now. And that's why if you hear my friend John, it's like 180, degree turn when he knew me before. Like I said, I wasn't searching for that. It found me.
Yeah.
But
you guys got
this.
something good going here.
We're going to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank
Awesome.
you, Dave.
Yeah. Thanks
for
for
having
being on.
And
We
are going
appreciate
to
everything you do, brother. And yeah, he's on Thursday, right?
Thursday night at 6, from 6 p.m. Pacific to 7 p.m. and it's 9 p.m. Eastern.
Wonderful.
And now all our Tuesdays are going to be Super Tuesdays.
Super Tuesdays. We're going to do chapter
8
5.
and 5. Yep. We're doing chapter 5 next. So
8 Eastern.
I'll be there. I'll be watching.
Thanks for everybody tuning in. See ya.
All right. Thanks. All right. Bye, everyone.
Take care, you guys.
All right. Have a good one.